Have you ever met someone who smiles warmly at you, while secretly waiting for you to fall? The real threat isn't always loud or obvious. It's the quiet ones, the ones who act like friends but move like predators. Because not all hatred shouts. Some people don't just dislike you, they want to see you crumble. And the scariest part, you might not realize it until it's too late. This isn't about paranoia. It's about awareness, about survival. Because the people who want to hurt you often don't look like enemies. They look like friends, colleagues, even family. And if you don't recognize them in time, they won't just hurt your feelings. They'll drain you dry, emotionally, financially, socially. Then they'll move on to the next target like nothing ever happened. In this video, I'm breaking down 5 critical signs that separate simple dislike from intentional destruction. If you notice these red flags, don't ignore them. Recognizing them early might just save you years of manipulation, betrayal, or something worse. So do you really know who's on your side? Or is someone waiting in silence, watching, biding their time, until the moment is perfect to strike? If you're serious about using Stoic wisdom to protect your peace and build emotional resilience, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because knowledge isn't just power, it's protection. Sign 1. The silent observer. There's a reason why the most dangerous threats don't announce themselves. A predator that growls before it strikes gives its prey time to run. But the deadliest ones, they wait, they blend in, they watch from the shadows. Some people don't just want to see you fail. They want to be there when it happens. And unlike obvious enemies, these people don't insult you. They don't threaten you. They don't show their hand. They operate in silence. I call them the silent observer. They're not just a nosy coworker who eavesdrops on office gossip. They're not your ex casually checking your Instagram. No, this is someone who studies you, tracks your life. Not because they're curious, but because they have a plan. And the scariest part? You often don't even notice them. Have you ever had someone casually mention a place you went, even though you never told them about it? Or noticed a particular person showing up more and more in your daily routine, like they always know where you'll be? At first, you think it's a coincidence. You brush it off. But when it keeps happening, when they're always there, always on time, it becomes harder to ignore. And in today's world, tracking someone doesn't take effort. It just takes patience. You might not post your schedule online, but your friends do. You might not say where you're going, but others around you accidentally give it away. A friend tags you at a restaurant. A coworker casually mentions your gym. A neighbor comments on your routine. Bit by bit, the silent observer pieces together your life, and once they've built the map, they start moving into it. It feels harmless at first. You run into them at your favorite cafe. They show up at your gym more often. They strike up small talk like it's all just random. But deep down, something feels off. Their timing is too perfect. Their presence, too consistent. They know things they shouldn't. They appear where they don't belong. And yet, when you try to explain it to yourself, you hesitate. You don't want to sound paranoid. But this isn't paranoia. This is calculated surveillance. So how do you protect yourself? You don't panic. You don't live in fear. You stay aware. Start paying attention. Real attention. Who always seems to be wherever you are? Who knows things they shouldn't? Who makes you feel uncomfortable, even when nothing obviously feels wrong? Your instincts are rarely wrong. The human brain is wired to detect danger before the mind can rationalize it. If something feels off, listen. And that's just the first sign. Because the next one, It's when your reality starts to bend, your memories questioned, your perception manipulated by someone you thought you could trust. That uneasy feeling in your stomach that whispers, something's not right. It's not paranoia, it's a warning. And it's there for a reason. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought." In other words, if you ignore the signs, if you silence your instincts, you shape your reality around a lie. And in doing so, you allow the silent observer to stay hidden exactly where they want to be. Invisible, undetected, and dangerous. The key to protecting yourself isn't fear, it's presence. It's choosing to stay alert, not anxious, but aware. Because while you can't control who's watching you, you can control what they see. That means breaking your patterns, changing your routines, being unpredictable. The harder you are to track, the less appealing you become as a target. If they can't predict your next move, they lose control, and that makes you powerful. But more than anything, trust your intuition. If something feels wrong, it probably is. In a world where your peace or your safety could be at stake, the worst mistake you can make is assuming that no one is watching. Sign number 2. The quiet betrayal. Not all attacks come with a warning. Some arrive in silence, slow, calculated, and wrapped in subtlety. Like poison dropped into a drink, the damage is delayed. By the time you feel the effects, it's already too late. The most dangerous enemies aren't the ones who confront you. They're the ones who smile while loosening the laces of your shoes, waiting for you to trip, only to act surprised when you fall. Take Alex, for example. He was thriving at work, respected, productive, well-liked. But something shifted, and it didn't happen overnight. It began with subtle changes. His manager, once eager to hear his ideas, suddenly seemed cold, disinterested. Colleagues who used to chat freely with him now offered only brief smiles, avoided eye contact, kept conversations short. Team lunch invitations quietly stopped. The workplace hadn't changed, but somehow he had become the outsider. At first, Alex blamed himself. Had he said something wrong? Was he misreading the situation? But over time, the pattern became clear. A joke misinterpreted. Credit for a project that mysteriously shifted to someone else. A vague comment about his attitude, one no one could quite explain. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't bad luck. It was betrayal. But not the kind that crashes in like a storm. This kind of sabotage is subtle, intentional, strategic. No public confrontation, no dramatic takedown, just whispers, half-truths, carefully placed doubts. The person behind it doesn't attack you directly. They plant seeds and let others water them. A small rumor here, a distorted comment there. Not outright lies, just enough ambiguity to make others pause, wonder, pull away. And by the time you realize what's happening, your reputation is already bleeding out. The Stoics knew this form of quiet sabotage well. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by political schemers and hidden enemies, once wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth. Because the world is full of people who follow perception, not proof. Who believe whispers over evidence. And if your self-worth depends on their opinion, you'll always be at their mercy. But if your worth is rooted in something deeper, your integrity, your choices, your character, then no rumor, no smear, no campaign of quiet betrayal can shake it." The mistake most people make: they believe betrayal is loud, that it will come with a slap, a scream, or a dramatic exit. But in truth, Betrayal often arrives smiling, disguised as concern. It wears the face of someone who pretends to care, but never gets their own hands dirty. The goal is simple: to isolate you, to make you question yourself, to weaken your confidence just enough that you're easier to control or easier to remove. So how do you protect yourself? First, understand this. Your reputation may be fragile, but your character is unbreakable. Others may shape how you're perceived, but they cannot define who you are. As Epictetus wisely said, if someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself with words. Live in such a way that no one will believe them. Don't chase rumors. Don't exhaust yourself trying to correct every misperception. Let your life speak louder than gossip ever could. Second, observe, not with paranoia, but with presence. If conflict seems to follow someone wherever they go, if misunderstandings always surround the same person, pay attention. You don't need to accuse without cause. But you also shouldn't ignore what's right in front of you, because silence in the face of patterns isn't wisdom, it's self-abandonment. And that leads us to the next sign, one that hits deeper than gossip or whispers. It's what happens when manipulation turns inward, when your very sense of reality is the thing under attack. Once you've learned to spot betrayal disguised as whispers, the next step is protecting your environment, because even the strongest walls mean little if the enemy is already inside. Fortify your inner circle. A person standing alone is easier to isolate, easier to manipulate, and easier to break. That's why one of the greatest defenses you can build is community, but not just any community. Surround yourself with people who know your heart, people who know who you are beyond the rumors, beyond the masks others might try to paint onto you. People who stay rooted in truth, not gossip. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once warned, "Associate with those who will make you a better man." Because the right people, they see lies for what they are. They don't get swayed by whispers. They look at your actions, your integrity, your character. Betrayal doesn't always announce itself. In fact, it rarely does. But those who aim to undermine you can only succeed if you let their whispers shape how you see yourself. Don't hand your power to shadows. Stand firm in your truth, see clearly, and never, ever give an enemy more power than they deserve. Sign number 3, the he. Mask of friendship. The most dangerous enemy isn't the one who openly stands against you. It's the one who stands beside you, smiling, nodding, listening, all while quietly sharpening the knife. Because betrayal doesn't come from strangers. Strangers don't know where to strike. Real betrayal comes from trust, from those we let in, from those we share our dreams, our fears, our lives with. Take Adam, for example. He was cautious, smart, a man who prided himself on being selective with his trust. He had built a strong career, a respected name, and surrounded himself with authentic relationships. He wasn't naive. He knew the world had its dangers. But when he launched a new business venture, he met Eric, a charismatic, helpful, always available colleague. Eric was more than a team player. He praised Adam's vision, encouraged his ideas, offered support at every turn. Soon, Eric became more than a business partner. He became a friend. He met Adam's wife, played with his kids, came over for dinners. He knew Adam's goals, his frustrations, even the thoughts that kept him up at night, and he did it perfectly, playing the role of confidant flawlessly. But then, things began to change. Deals Adam had been nurturing suddenly collapsed, only to be picked up and closed by Eric himself. Private conversations Adam had shared began coming back to him. twisted, distorted, and used against him. And worst of all, when Adam finally confronted Eric, he didn't get rage, he got gaslighting. You're overthinking. You misunderstood. I'd never do that to you. But the pattern was undeniable. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was surgical. Eric hadn't attacked Adam with aggression. He had disarmed him with trust. He didn't need to argue, threaten, or challenge directly. He got close, earned confidence, learned the weaknesses, then turned that access into a weapon. And that's what makes the false friend so dangerous. Unlike open enemies, they don't try to fight you. They study you, mimic your values, earn your affection. And once they've earned your faith, they use it to destroy you from within. A Stoic would never advise blind trust, not out of cynicism, but out of wisdom. Even Marcus Aurelius observed, "Those who rush to prove their loyalty are often the ones most likely to betray you." Because true trust is earned over time, through consistent action. But the false friend fast-tracks the process. They don't build a foundation, they pick the lock. Ask yourself this: has someone in your life gone from distant acquaintance to eager confidant, almost too quickly? Have they taken a sudden interest in your routines, your relationships, your insecurities? Do they present themselves as your biggest supporter, yet quietly feed your doubts? Do they ask questions that feel a little too personal under the guise of concern? Remember, a real friend wants to see you grow. A fake one wants access. And access, when given to the wrong hands, can be dangerous. History is full of betrayals that followed this exact pattern. Even Julius Caesar never expected Brutus, someone he trusted as a brother, to be among his assassins. As Seneca warned, a prosperous man has more to fear, not from his enemies, but from his friends. Because when you have something of value, whether it's success, stability, or inner peace, it attracts not only admiration, but envy. When betrayal wears a smile and stands beside you, it's not strength or intelligence that keeps you safe, it's awareness. And once you're aware, the next step is knowing how to guard what matters most. There will always be people who want what you have, your influence, your peace, your position. But the easiest way for them to take it isn't through force. It's through deception. So, how do you protect yourself from these hidden threats? It starts with one word: awareness. Be mindful of subtle shifts in behavior. If someone is suddenly too eager to befriend you, if they're unusually curious about your personal life, your thoughts, your fears, your daily routine, pause and ask yourself, why? Because real friendship takes time. It builds slowly, like layers of trust stacking gently over time. But a false friend? They don't wait. They move fast, because their goal isn't connection, it's control. That brings us to the second principle: patience. A manipulative person accelerates the bonding process. They want your trust before you've had time to see their true colors. They charm their way in, bypass your defenses, and make you feel like you've known them forever, even if it's only been days or weeks. Have you ever met someone who got too close too fast? Who mirrored your every interest, remembered tiny details you barely mentioned, and made you feel like you were soulmates almost overnight? That isn't magic. It's a tactic. Finally, protect your inner world. Not everyone deserves access to your goals, your insecurities, your pain. As Epictetus warned, the more you reveal of yourself, the more you give others the power to use it against you. So choose carefully, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because the greatest danger doesn't always come from those who oppose you openly. Sometimes it comes from the ones standing close enough to whisper in your ear, while holding a knife behind their back. Be kind, but not blind. Be open, but not exposed. And above all, never mistake rapid closeness for true connection. Time reveals true intentions. Let it do its job. If any of this resonates, I'd love to hear from you. Comment yes below if this gave you a moment of clarity or helped you reflect on someone in your life. Sign number 4, the gradual attack. No one becomes dangerous overnight. Just like storms don't strike without warning, neither do people. Before thunder shakes the ground, the sky darkens. The wind shifts, the air changes. Nature always gives a signal, and so do people. When someone harbors real malice, they rarely strike impulsively. They escalate, slowly, quietly. They test boundaries. They probe for weakness. They see how far they can push before revealing their full intent. If you don't recognize the signs, you may not see the danger until it's too late. Let's look at a real example. Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who assassinated President John F. Kennedy. He didn't wake up one morning and decide to commit murder. His descent into violence followed a clear pattern, one that stretched across years. Oswald had a history of aggression, deep resentment, and ideological obsession. He defected to the Soviet Union, only to return to the US more alienated than ever. Before Kennedy, he had already attempted to assassinate General Edwin Walker, a retired right-wing figure. That attempt failed. But it was a red flag, a warning shot no one fully recognized. He refined his tactics. He escalated quietly. And by the time he took his final shot, his path had already been carved out long before. Because escalation doesn't begin with violence. It starts with something small, something easily dismissed. Maybe a joke, with just enough edge to make you uncomfortable but not quite enough to challenge. Then a mistake, a slight push, a brush that lingers too long, standing too close, blocking your way just a little too deliberately. Then it grows, words that feel like threats, delivered with a smirk, violent language wrapped in sarcasm. Just kidding. Relax. You know I didn't mean it, but every word, every action is a test. If you laugh it off, they push further. If you say nothing, they take it as permission. Each step is a calculated move, watching how much they can get away with before you say enough. History has shown this pattern time and time again. Mark David Chapman, the man who murdered John Lennon, didn't just pull a trigger out of nowhere. He lurked for months, watched, waited. He even got Lennon's autograph hours before killing him, smiling for a photo like any fan would. There were signs, disturbing comments, erratic behavior, but they were brushed off, labeled as harmless, eccentricity, until they weren't. And that's the danger. When we ignore what's uncomfortable, because it's easier than facing the truth. But Stoicism doesn't teach us to ignore threats. It teaches us to face them with clarity, without fear. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When danger appears, subtle or overt, our job is not to panic. It's to respond wisely, to act from awareness, to protect without paranoia. Refusing to acknowledge a problem doesn't make it go away. Avoiding confrontation doesn't dissolve danger. It gives it room to grow. People who test limits do so because they believe they can, because no one is stopping them. And when those around them stay silent, the consequences can be devastating. So, what do? Step 1. Recognize the pattern. If someone repeatedly makes violent jokes, displays aggressive body language, or invades your personal space more than once, it's not harmless. It's not just how they are, It's not your job to make excuses for them. Because when someone jokes about destruction or makes dark remarks with a smile, they're often testing how much they can say before someone finally speaks up, and if no one speaks, they escalate. Step 2. Set firm boundaries immediately. A Stoic doesn't panic. But they also don't tolerate unnecessary threats. When someone crosses a line, respond, not with fear, but with clarity. Address the behavior directly and firmly. Let your boundaries be known. If they continue to push, step away. Some people escalate simply because they believe no one will resist. But when you show them that you will, many back down. And finally, act before it's too late. If things continue to escalate, don't wait. Start documenting everything. Keep records of disturbing remarks. Take note of repeated boundary violations. Write down any signs of threatening behavior, because what you document today could protect you tomorrow. Seek support. Talk to management, report to authorities, or speak with someone in a position to intervene. And if needed, create distance, even from those who once felt familiar. As Seneca wrote, a sword never kills by itself. It is merely the hand that wields. Violence doesn't erupt from nowhere. It begins with signs, warnings, patterns. The sooner you recognize them, the better your chance of stopping the threat before it fully unfolds. Fear thrives in ignorance. But knowledge, awareness, action, that's how fear becomes power. Because no one falls into chaos in a single step. It happens slowly, choice by choice, moment by moment. And no one prevents disaster by pretending it doesn't exist. So ask yourself, when the sky darkens and the wind shifts, will you notice the change in time? Sign number 5. The long game. Some threats scream. They lash out. They explode in the heat of emotion. They're easy to spot, easy to avoid, easy to defend against. But the ones you should truly fear, they're the quiet ones. The patient ones, the ones who play the long game. A truly dangerous enemy doesn't act in anger. They act with calculation. They observe, they listen, they gather information, and they wait. They don't strike when you're watching. They strike when you're vulnerable, when your guard is down, when you think you're safe. Unlike obvious aggressors, these people don't give you time to prepare. They move in the shadows, behind the scenes, and when they finally act, the damage is deep, irreversible, and often untraceable. Let's bring this closer to home. Think about your own life. Has someone ever taken an unusual interest in your real details? Not just your hobbies or favorite movies, but your ambitions, your fears, your personal life. Some people ask out of genuine care, but others, they ask because information is leverage. They build a map of your movements. They learn your routines. They gather insights, not to support you, but to ensure they know exactly where and when you'll be most vulnerable. The danger, these people rarely raise alarms. In fact, they often seem like the least threatening person in the room. History has shown us this again and again. The greatest betrayals don't always come from known enemies. They come from those we trust. Remember Julius Caesar? He didn't fear his rivals in war. He feared Brutus, least of all. And yet, it was Brutus who stood among his assassins. Why? Because he had access. He had trust. He had time. The patient enemy doesn't lash out. They blend in. They position themselves in your life so carefully, so intentionally, that by the time they reveal themselves, you're already entangled. Too close to escape. Maybe it's a manager who praises your work in public, but slowly phases you out behind the scenes. Maybe it's a business partner who agrees with everything you say, while planting seeds that quietly shift control. Or Maybe it's someone personal, a friend, a family member, someone who waits until they've gained maximum influence before making their move. These aren't accidents. They're strategies. The patient enemy doesn't shout. They whisper. They don't oppose you. They embed themselves into your world. And that's why they're the hardest to detect and the most dangerous to ignore. Marcus Aurelius once warned against trusting appearances too easily. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The patient enemy knows this better than anyone. They disguise themselves in layers of warmth, charm, and apparent loyalty until you, unknowingly, begin to paint them in the colors you want to see. An ally, a friend, someone you can trust. But by the time they show their true nature, it's often too late to repaint the picture. So how do you protect yourself? First, be mindful of those who show a deep and consistent interest in your personal life. Not every question is a red flag. Some people are just curious. Some genuinely care. But if someone seems overly invested in your private details, your future plans, your emotional struggles, your habits, take note. Because information in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Second, never give away more than necessary. The Stoics believed in self-sufficiency, in relying on one's own reason and restraint. That doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means using discernment. Don't offer up your fears, your goals, or your inner world to just anyone, especially those who haven't earned your trust through time and consistent action. And third, trust. Patterns, not promises. Anyone can say the right words. A real friend shows up when there's nothing to gain. They act with integrity even when no one's watching. A false friend, a patient enemy, does the opposite. They play the long game, waiting for the moment you lower your guard. Don't let them. If you recognize this pattern in someone, understand that you're not dealing with minor jealousy or a simple misunderstanding. You're facing a calculated threat, and when that's the case, your survival doesn't depend on how you react to danger. It depends on how early you recognize it, before it ever reaches you. Before you click away, I need you to do 2 quick but important things. First, save this video. These signs we've explored today, they're not just interesting facts. They could be the difference between staying ahead or getting blindsided when it matters most. Remember, the biggest threats don't always scream. Sometimes they smile. Second, watch the next video that's now on your screen. It'll show you how to spot covert manipulators, because the kinds of people we've talked about today, they rarely act alone. They work in networks. They wear masks. And the more you understand their tactics, the harder it becomes for them to deceive you. If this video helped open your eyes, let me know in the comments. Write, "I see clearly," because once you spot these signs, you can't unsee them. And if you want to stay 5 steps ahead, sharpen your instincts and protect your inner peace, hit that subscribe button now, because knowledge is power. But action is what keeps you safe. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.